You should have received a letter in the mail this past week from the church or from the evangelism committee of the church. Do you remember getting that letter in the mail? Hands up there. The postal service is at work. That's good. The letter contained 3 church business cards. 3 or 4, somewhere in that neighborhood. The point of the letter was to give you a tool to use when you talk to people about church who perhaps didn't go to church. Maybe to make it easier for you to invite somebody to come to church with you. At the very least, now you could hand the person a card that tells them where you go to church and invite them to meet you there. There's even a map on the back so that people can see where we're at. Very simple, very simple. I love that idea. I love anything that helps us inject church stuff into our conversations. I think people need to know how good it can be to be here with us on a Sunday morning. Even if people who get the card can't read, they will know where we go to church because there's a picture of the church on the card. And they can just kind of walk up and down the streets until they see something that looks like that picture and come on in. But when I start thinking along those simple solutions to getting the word out that Gilbert Presbyterian Church is here, Peter's comment from the story of the transfiguration of Jesus comes back to give me just a little poke. Master, it's good for us to be here. How many times do we make the mistake of thinking about church as a place to be instead of a way for us to live? The first definition of church in my office dictionary talks about a building where people meet to worship. But we need to be reminded again and again that church is not just a building. The church is not even mainly or foremost a building, but the church is people. You are the church. If we don't make that jump in the way that we see church, then we're stuck. We put God in a box. We see this as a place where it is good for us to be. And all the while, God is pointing us to go somewhere else. As Christians, we love to talk about mountaintop experiences in life. Those times, when you feel so close to Jesus that you can almost reach out and touch Him. And I know people who have had those kinds of incidents in their lives, and they spend their lives trying to get back to that feeling that they had when they were on that mountaintop. Let's make 3 dwellings, Lord. We don't want to lose what we're feeling at this moment. Peter wanted to do more than just bask in the moment. He wanted to freeze it in time so that it would last forever. He didn't want to let go of the vision that he had. I don't know how many times I've had someone tell me, Pastor, I just wish that service of worship would never end. Or was it, I thought that worship service would never end. But the point is that what happens here, as important as it is, and it is important, is not the sum total of the work of the Spirit of God in your life. It's not even close. To think that it is to put God's Spirit in a box, and God will have none of that. Paul wrote that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. God has work to do in us and through us. We don't hold on to light. We let that light shine through us. We don't hang on to love. We pass it on, as our youth choir told us to do. We don't possess Jesus. Jesus possesses us, and then we give Jesus away. And we have to leave here to do that. As you think about how you're going to use those cards that came in the letter last week, think about church and what that word means to you and what it means to someone you are inviting to come to church with you. Most people think about stained glass windows when they think about church. You ever notice which way those windows are pointed? You ever go past a church with these beautiful stained glass windows during the day and you look at the windows from the outside and try and figure out what they're trying to represent? You can't tell because the windows are made for the benefit of the people inside the church. We want to be able to see these stories that are so important to us in beautiful art shining through when the sun shines. Those looking in from the outside can't make any sense out of what those windows represent at all. Master, it's good for us to be here. We've captured the light instead of giving it away. We spend most of our time trying to reach the light at the end of the tunnel and hold on to that light. What we should be doing is heading for the tunnel at the end of the light and taking that light with us out into the darkness so that others can see. It's hard to share light when people see a members only sign on our doors. You and I need to do everything we can to let that light out. But unless those of us inside burn with the power of the fire of Jesus, there won't be enough light to illuminate windows so that the world can see from the outside what is going on in here. Now, about now, some of you are thinking that we don't have stained glass windows that tell stories in our sanctuary. Stories that we would like to keep to ourselves. But have you noticed where the windows are in this sanctuary? Besides the stained glass one behind me, their windows are way up there. And that's just fine. They let a lot of light in. But can we see what's happening outside by looking at those windows? If there was a fender bender in the street out in front, we couldn't see what happened. If a homeless family walked across on the sidewalk in front of the church, we couldn't see them, and they couldn't see what was going on inside here either. We can't see the world by looking out those windows. Again, people on the outside can't see what's going on in here. What do you think would happen, though, if we replaced our walls with windows so that we could see out and people could see in? Don't worry, Hoyt, this isn't another plan for buildings around. We're not going to go there. But it does make you wonder if we haven't accomplished, in some senses, what Peter wanted to do, building a dwelling place to house the Spirit and take the freedom of the Spirit away. But again, friends, you are the church, not this building in which we worship. You are the windows that the light of Christ is going to shine through for the world to see. And people are going to see that light not in the words that you say, but in the works that you do. I think it's interesting that Luke tells us that the mountaintop vision ended in a cloud of shadows, and that a word from God came to the disciples saying, "Shut up and listen." No, that's my paraphrase there. But this is what the disciples heard. "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." And you know what? For once they did. They listened to Jesus. They followed him down into the valley. They listened and they saw Jesus bring the light of God's love into their world. They listened to what Jesus had to say about being light bearers themselves. They listened and God's love shined through them and empowered them to do amazing things. And that didn't happen because they stayed away from the world and its challenges up on the mountaintop. It happened because they came down off the mountain and they lived love in their world. Are you ready for that? Is there a light shining through you? Is there a fire burning inside you? Is the Spirit of Jesus blazing in your heart today? There's no better time than right now to take the choir's anthem word seriously and let that light shine. Let the Spirit ignite your faith as you come to the table of the Lord. Would you pray with me? Gracious God, you are here. And it's good for us to be here this morning. But we know, Lord, that you have so much more in store for us. Fill us. Blaze within us. Let your light shine through us. May we take that light and that love into a darkened world, that all might see your glory and your love in Jesus' name. Amen.